Hello and welcome everybody to the IACT IMDHA Presenters series on the St. Patrick's Day of 2019 in anticipation of the IACT IMDHA Expo, which is 2 months from today, May 17th, 18th, and 19th, with pre- and post-conference programs on the days before and on the days after the weekend. We are joined tonight by my lovely co-host, Karen Ham. So hi, Karen. Say hello to everyone.
Hello. Good evening. Thanks all of you for showing up. And for those of you who don't have your camera on, turn your cameras on because, or at least look at the screen, see the video on the screen if you can, because I have the lovely Chicago River behind me, which we dye green every year for St. Patrick's Day, and you can see the beautiful Wrigley building. And Michael has a special Happy St. Patrick's Day greeting for you. So those are a couple of reasons why you want to see us talk while you listen to us talk.
And by the way that they dye that river green is they pour a whole lot of Mountain Dew into it, I think. If you look closely,
I'm not sure that Mountain Dew would be worse than what they're pouring into it. I don't know that it would be any better though either.
So a couple of very quick announcements. If you are spending time with us, an hour and a half here with us this evening, you are entitled to an hour and a half worth of CEUs if you're a member of IACT or IMDHA. In order to collect them, just go to the website for the organization that you're a member of. And when you log in with your member ID, there's a little form that kicks up a place that you can enter in CEUs. And CEUs are also granted by the IHF and the CBC. Say it again.
ICBCH.
ICBCH. Yes, and I think that you'll probably even get CEUs from other friendly and compatible hypnosis organizations. So if you belong to one of those, you might let them know that you spent an evening talking about hypnosis and joining an online group, and they will give you credit for those as well. The replay from this evening's program will be posted. I do my best to have it up by noon tomorrow, and it might even be much sooner than that. It will be posted in the IACT IMDHA members chat room, or members forum, which is the Mind Matters forum, if you can access that. It also will be posted on IACT and IMDHA's website under the tab for teleconferences. If you click there, you'll see, tab for conference rather. If you click there, you'll see something for teleconference, webinars, I believe that the link says. And it will have all the ones that we've had so far, in fact, for you to see there. We will post it on the virtual chapter group in Facebook, and we will also post it in the virtual chapter's YouTube channel. So you can find it any number of places, and we know that you're going to want to hear it again. So look forward to being able to see the replay tomorrow. I think that's just about all that I need to say in order to get us underway. Is there anything that you have before we start, Karen?
I don't think so. Let's get started.
Well,
I do have one thing that is important. I have some pain, and I would love to talk to somebody who could help me release that pain without surgery or without medication, with just the magic of my mind. I wonder if you know of anybody that I might be able to talk with about that.
Well, I've got somebody in mind because it is St. Patrick's Day. So Daniel Cleary here has agreed to join us this evening. And let me just tell you a little bit about Dan. Now, here's the official scoop. The official scoop says that Dan is an internationally recognized certified hypnosis instructor and pain relief educator, teaching hypnosis and hypnotic techniques throughout the United States and Europe to doctors, psychologists, therapists, and other hypnotists. And his specialties include pain relief and personal transformation. But I've got to add to that because Dan is somebody that I actually know. He's not just a bunch of words on a page. He's a lovely human being. He was a past president of Hypnosis Education Association here in Florida that I also have been involved with through the years. I have known Dan for, I think it's 20 years, Dan. It's very close to that if it isn't that already. So I'm really delighted to have this evening to talk with you. And in a moment, if I'm lucky here, I'm going to be able to turn on your microphone. There, I have just done that. So welcome, Dan. And welcome to the show.
And that's the meaning of life.
And that's the meaning of life. Dan, I've got to warn you, and it may be my volume, but you might want to either get a little closer to your microphone or something, because I could hardly hear you there for a second. But
Well, I don't know.
that's
If
beautiful.
I get closer to the mic, I don't know. Let me see. Maybe if I put it here.
Oh, that's really good.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's
We can hear you
perfect.
now.
That's good.
So,
So
Okay.
I don't want to just jump in here, Michael. If you've got an opening question you'd like to start with, by all means. If not, I've got, I think Dan and I have something in common.
well, in fact, here's kind of where
We're on the call.
we're on the call. This is something I mentioned to Dan too that I'd like to start out with, because Dan has had his own personal experience of living with severe chronic pain, and he became a member of the Chronic Club a whole bunch of years ago, and I thought it might be useful for us to just understand how it is that he, through that, came into this. So Dan, can you talk to us about that?
Yeah. A little over 40 years ago, which is just beyond my ability to conceive of at this point, I was in a motorcycle wreck, and I went over the handlebars. Apparently, I put my arm out to break my fall or something, and it did more than that. It broke my collarbone, ripped my arm around behind me or something. I got thrown 75 feet, and I woke up in the hospital. I had what is called a brachial plexus avulsion, which is the nerves from my arm were torn out of my spine.
Oh.
Burning, crushing pain, 24/7. First 5 years, I didn't sleep in the conventional sense. I would go 24, 36 or more hours, and then I'd collapse for 3 or 4 hours and wake up in tears. I took massive drugs. I had, this is the beginning of opioids and all that, so they were very free with them at the health maintenance organization I was a member of. And I grew up in the 60s. I had a lot of street access too. So I took a lot of drugs. But it didn't help. It just made me care less about the pain. I learned about, I had a hypnosis session at 5 years after my wreck. And honestly, I didn't think the hypnotist was any good, and I didn't think hypnosis worked. But it reminded me of my metaphysical studies back in the late 60s. And so I took what I got from that session, and within a week I was sleeping 6 to 8 hours a night most nights. Cut back on my drug use to fractions, and began developing it more and more for myself. And in the process, I noticed that, you know, in a way, like attracts like. I don't really like that phrase, but when you're in pain, other people that are in pain, you seem to meet them or seem to acknowledge them. And I found that just by talking to people, I could help them relieve their pain by simple stuff. My metaphysics is what I considered it. And I did that for probably another 10 years. And somebody at one point, I was in a boatyard. I had first thing that you do when you paralyze your right arm and have a lot of pain. I had been a carpenter, so once I was vertical and able to walk and talk and things like that, I went out and bought a boat and that needed to be rebuilt so that I could learn to be left-handed. And I ended up in Florida, and I was having the boat hauled, and the guy who was running the travel lift, and those of you who don't know, a travel lift is this huge metal beams and all this, and they drive over the water and lift your boat out. I'm sitting, he told me that his back was bothering me, and this was the last boat of the day, and this was going to be a pain, and yada, yada, yada. And I said, not a problem. I jumped up on top of the engine of this thing, which is roaring, and talked him through his back while I was actually talking about my sailboat, about how he knew exactly how to lift it and how to make it so that everything stayed straight inside and that it balanced well in the thing. And as he put it down, he said, you know, I feel a lot better. He says, that's hypnosis. I said, no, it's not. And he says, yeah, it is, and you should get paid for that. And I said, oh. Wait a minute, paid? And so within a couple of days, or actually certainly within a couple of weeks, somebody said there's a hypnosis course you should take. And that was where I became the official hypnotist. It was, and the funny thing is that when I got my training, I was unable to do what I had been doing naturally for several years, because I was given these scripts and this is the way it's supposed to be, and very old school hypnosis style. And it took me about 6 months to get over my training.
You're quick.
Well, when I had my first hypnosis session with this psychiatrist back 5 years after my wreck, he did this walking down 20 steps into there's a big door in a cave, and you go through the cave, you know, this one. And he's at, you know, step 5, and I'm at the bottom going, you know, come on, come on. And I thought, okay, hypnosis is walk down 20 steps and go into a cave. And I don't like caves, and I'm impatient, so I'm not waiting for 20 steps. When I took my certification class, the first script was walk down 20 steps and go into a cave. Anyway, that's how I got involved in this stuff. Thoughts, ideas.
So that, now I've got to know, did that in some way help your pain?
Oh, within days, I was able to release a good portion of it.
You were able to sleep, you said, even with the bad hypnotist, but I wondered if when you really understood how to put hypnosis to it, what that did for your pain.
Well, hypnosis doesn't exist, so within a week, I learning that it was or comprehending or imagining even that it was just metaphysics is what did it for me in the beginning. Because I knew metaphysics, I knew how to go into trance, I knew how to go to very, you know, I played with out of body experiences way back in the 60s and things, and so getting to a point where I could zone out was not a problem. Learning to do it so that I could do it quickly and while I was doing other things and stay functional, that's the icing.
Tell me terms, if you will, Dan, because I know sometimes we talk about chronic pain, and that sounds like what you've been talking about too. And gosh, having that pain for that many years, that's chronic. What is acute pain? And I don't think any pain is very cute, but what is the difference between chronic?
Oh no, it really is. The pain that has dimples, that's beautiful. But I don't see her anymore. Acute pain and chronic pain. Acute pain is responsive to and relative to a current injury, you know, and it probably lasts for hours or days, and you can understand it if even in the process of it. Oh, I've got a toothache. I broke my leg. You know, it's going to be a week before I can put any weight on it, and you've got a way to grapple or to understand it in your mind and accept even great discomfort for a short period because it's getting better.
Because you see that an end game ahead. You
Yeah.
see that it's going to stop. Yeah.
Yeah, and chronic pain is it's from the word chronos. It just goes on. It's at time, and generally, I think 3 to 6 months after the onset, you can go, okay, this might be looking toward chronic.
And once it boils over to chronic, that's when doctors really start saying there's nothing they can do but opioids or surgery or something like that. Is that correct?
Well, no, I don't know. I'm not medical. I avoid that. Mostly, I think that a great portion of the doctors that I've seen over the years treat people like a mechanic. This is the signal. This is the painkiller. This is the drug to use for this or that or this or that. They don't have a lot of reliance. Many don't. Many are learning and coming into this now. Michael Elner and I, for 7 years, were teaching at a medical conference, and we met a lot of doctors who were really on board with our stuff and with the idea of mind-body connection, if not mind-body medicine.
So what is the access then to the mind and the relationship to the pain?
If you're not connected to your mind, you don't have any pain. I think that's called dead.
I was wondering if you have an access point, if that gives you an access point to the mind, if you can use that point.
Consciousness. If you're if you're awake, or if you're conscious, you're connected. Mm-hmm. I think one of the biggest difficulties that I see in the understanding of mind-body is the concept that, well, I have to learn how to do it. And the fact of the matter is that, if when it gets gray and rainy and funky out, you feel blue, then you're connected. If the environment changes the way you feel, you're connected. If somebody being rude to you upsets you for a few days or an hour or whatever it is, you're connected. We're connected all the time. What we have to learn is to eliminate the distractions that have made you forget that we are connected. I mean, with Jack Elias the other night, recognizing that we are already connected and that we already have an innate ability to change things is a whole lot different than having to learn how to connect you or get connected. We're there. We're already there. It's easy.
And now
it's simple. It's not easy.
How do we access the relief point then? We're connected, but now how do we access relief?
Lots of different ways. And that's the thing that I've learned. I've had a lot of training.
Yeah, if I can offer something here, and I think this is sort of the direction that Karen's going to, is that I know, first of all, between chronic and acute pain, there's something that's always been very fascinating to me, is that I sort of think what I can do with myself in terms of pain management. I've had the good fortune of not having to learn how to do while I was in excruciating pain. I could learn in classes things about managing my feelings, managing my state, doing things with hypnosis, and learn them and get them down as skills. So then when I needed them, they became available to me. On the other hand, when you're working with somebody who's in acute pain or who's in pain all of the time, it's rather a real challenge to be able to teach people how to open up their their awareness or their connection, as you will, and experience something different because it seems to demand attention. You have a different way of thinking about hypnosis and what hypnosis is. So
yeah, well,
maybe we can move in that direction.
Well, here again, when you're living with a chronic condition or chronic pain or a chronic painful condition, I mean, think about it, that life is a sexually transmitted chronic disease that's always fatal, you know. But during that period between birth and the last goodbye, there will be times that you're laying in bed at night asleep and you wake up and have to go to the bathroom. And so you get up and you're tiptoeing into the bathroom and ow, stub your toe, the ottoman attacked. You're jumping up and down on one foot, trying to scream silently so you don't wake anybody in the house. And you can imagine that in your life right now. And what happens when you're doing that? Your toe has been attacked by the ottoman or the chair leg or whatever it is. Now, it's not likely that that's going to hit again because chairs are pretty stable in where they stay. And yet your shoulders, your hands, your most people make a fist. They go, and you get tense all over your body responding to this attack on your toe. Mm-hmm. If you imagine that this is a way or a similar situation to dealing with the chronic pain, when you forget that it's only the toe that hurts and you keep all the other muscles tight, they begin to develop their own pains and send their own signals. And it compounds and it compounds and it compounds. Now, if you recognize that the ottoman is probably not going to come after you again and breathe through it and consciously let go of the rest of your tension, then it changes from the pain being universal throughout your body from over tensing to just this one signal. And you go, oh, I've done this before. It'll be half an hour, and I'll be fine. And then for a day or two, it'll be hard to put a shoe on. Other than that, it's not an issue. I live in Florida. I wear sandals most of the time anyway. And
who needs feet? I'm just going to sit here.
Yeah. Hey, man. So when a client comes in, most of them don't recognize all the referred pains that they live with. Chronic pain can cause acute pain. Part of my situation is that my right arm is paralyzed. And so the muscles have atrophied and all that. There's no movement. Some of the people that have a similar condition keep their arm in a sling all the time and things like that. I don't have the time for accessories. So my arm hangs. And those of you who know me have seen me around, and a lot of times people don't notice until they try and shake hands with me or something like that. The weight of the arm is just like carrying 10 pounds in your hand all the time. It's not a problem. And then after an hour or 2 hours, it gets to be really heavy. It offsets my shoulder muscles and my back muscles. Other things other nerve damage that I have that's secondary, if you will. I've got a lot of aches and pains that are related to compensating for this arm. As I mentioned, I rebuilt a sailboat and went offshore sailing and, solo Atlantic sailing up and down the coast and over to the Bahamas and things like this. there's a lot of things that you do in a day that overstrain your other muscles. So compensate, so the chronic pain is the core that causes daily acute pains, and getting able to function in that way teaches you a lot of neat tricks. So did I completely confuse you on that?
No, not at all.
Um,
Michael, I can see your lips moving, but I can't see.
This is a ventriloquist act that we have going on here, Karen. So, so that would be a nice way to do it. I'm just sorry. I'm looking at the clock, and I just want to caution you that we have about 15 more minutes with Dan, and so just being aware ahead of time that we'll hopefully we can get a couple questions in there as well from folks that are listening. There's something that I think is really an issue here. But first of all, just to make sure we get this out on the table, your program, and I didn't announce it this way at the beginning, your program is called Targeting Pain. It's one day, it's a full day on Friday of the conference weekend. And what are you going to teach people to do in your class?
Change the world.
All right.
Cool.
And then in the afternoon, we're going to get busy. There's a couple of things, and this has to do with signing up as soon as you can. You're going to get, let me get my book. You're going to get Targeting Pain, the book, and Michael's Head. I have homework for you before the class starts. So, you see, while you were digging around, we were watching the top of your head. I was holding this up here. There we go. I have homework that I would like people to do before we come into class. So when you sign up, shoot me an email, or I'll see if I can work it out with the office that they give me your contact information. And I'll see if I can get the book to you ahead of time and give you this homework assignment. At the very least, if I'll be there Thursday, anybody that's in the hotel Thursday night, we can get together and have an hour or so to talk about what I'd like you to do. I think that my experience with relief, and I use the term relief rather than management because management is more work. And when you're living with chronic conditions, there's enough you have to deal with that you don't want more work. That's just my take on it. It's not the techniques. It's not the depth of trance. We're working with people and helping them to discover ways to get relief while they're walking down the street, while they're driving their car with their eyes open. And this is not something that, it's great when you've got the time and you can sit home and close your eyes and Om Mani Padme or do your self-hypnosis trance, whatever it may be, and do a formal session where you get, a longer lasting benefits. But when you're in the office and your back is bothering you and you've got to make a phone call, you've got to make the phone call. So, there's 30 seconds. To me, when a client comes in, my goal of the first session is for them to get a level of relief that they can recognize and they can replicate in 3 minutes or less. So that's what you'll learn. Other than that, probably, like I say, in the morning we'll be busy, in the afternoon we'll get to work.
Well, it's very familiar in that what I think I'm hearing you say, Dan, is much like what you're feeling can actually trigger an action or a relief rather than triggering that tension. I experienced that in Lamaze years ago, which was just hypnosis by another name. But in Lamaze, they told us that a contraction during childbirth was a signal to release and let go and relax and let the body take its course and breathe instead. It made childbirth very easy to see it in that context.
I've heard that childbirth is the only way that a woman can understand what it feels like when a man has a cold.
That was funny.
Yeah. The thing is that we, you know, when we talk about the difference between relief and management, when they come in, I mean, typically a client comes to see me. I'm the last resort. I'm way down the hall. Next, you know, I mean, beyond me, next door down is faith healing, and they've probably been there already anyway.
Do they have a resort for that?
They do. It's the last resort. When they come in, they know management. Management in their case is, I take these pills, I do this, I let somebody else drive, because if I take the pills and I have a drink and they know how pain management works. I'm not interested in teaching them to manage. I'm interested in helping them to find the resources to find relief. And this is, it's not technique. It's helping them to recognize skills that they have. A musician, for instance, might be able to tune out the pain. And he knows music. And you know, so I can go with that. I worked with an accountant, and formal trance was just out of the question with this guy. I mean, it's just nope. I said, you know, and I finally looked at him. I mean, all my clients have taught me most of what I know. Certainly, they've taught me anything that I know relative to getting somebody else to make changes. And I finally looked at him and I said, you know, does having this pain, does this interfere with your life? And he said, yes, of course. That's why I'm here. I said, yeah, okay. That, you know, calm down. And I said, well, you do this and this and this. And he said, yeah. And I said, it just doesn't add up, does it? Would it be acceptable to invest in yourself? And I came up with what I call the 4% solution. Which is a predecessor of the 10% solution, or it's completely different, but they both sound good. They both have solutions. And what is it? I can't remember the old AA thing that alcohol is a solvent, not a solution. Working with chronic issues, it takes over your life when you're living that. I don't know if anybody on the call experiences chronic issues, but even going back to the idea of that I did with stubbing your toe, think about that and how all those responsive reactions that you have in your system interfere with the quality of life. So I may not be able to change the signal that is generated. That in my case, that I have broken nerves, and both sides of the break are fine. But my brain doesn't know that the break's there, so it says, "Hey, there's a problem here. There's a problem here. There's a problem here." You know, I can't change the signal. But I don't have to respond to it.
Nice.
You know, or I can change the way that I respond to it.
Dan, there's something that has often touched me. I mean, I've heard you speak a number of times. I'm also just going to mention right now that, by the way, we've probably only got about 5 more minutes left, or 6, something like that. So if anybody has a quick question that they'd like to write in the chat box, go ahead and do that, and we'll see if we can get that in. But in the meantime, Dan, I've heard you talk about, and what you just said really was an illustration of that, the experiences that that people who are in chronic pain go through, and you know, and that they are, in fact, the way that I've heard you talk about it is that they are heroes. And I really think that's a beautiful thought and a beautiful way to talk about it. So can you just share a little bit about that?
Yeah, I consider my clients to be heroes, flat out heroes. And if you think of the hero, the icon, the archetype of hero, very often, you know, the knight in shining armor kind of thing comes to mind. And that's not, that may be where the hero ends up. But the hero is an ordinary person in extraordinary circumstance who perseveres. The hero, when I'm assisting a hero to access skills and abilities they already possess, I'm not there to fix something that's broken. I'm there to assist them through a challenging time. And so it changes the whole dynamic. I mean, I'm not there to repair a broken anything. I'm there to help them find the skills and abilities that they possess and use them to help them through the challenge that they live with. It's amazing when you're working with people that it is an honor to assist.
Yeah.
You know, and it you know, again, it's not the technique. I mean, you know, oh, you know, your hand is cold and numb, and somebody said that to me, I slap them upside the head. Cold, cold and numb are exactly what hurt the most. You know,
So you slap them up the side of the head with a cold, numb hand.
No, I do it with hot fury.
But you have some very colorful language, Dan. Hot fury and cold, and you know, these things are very descriptive. They're very descriptive. I heard you talking, tip us off a little bit a moment ago to some of the languaging you use to really talk to a client rather than managing, because that sounds like work, relief. Well, that gives me hope. That's exactly the kind of thing where you're gently teaching them how to change their mind, are you not?
Yeah, I suppose that's the ballpark, yeah.
And are there other specific languaging that you would use?
Here again, I am there to serve them. Their language will tell me where we're going. I have done for years. Michael knows this. For years, I've spoken about language. I won't say that I'm an NLP practitioner, though I've done some NLP training. I've trained with you, Michael. But language is a very important aspect. And I think that I have learned for years, I've spoken about language and the difference between talking to you on this call or speaking with you. Huge difference. Sure. Hi, kid. Hi. And when I was, those of you who know me know that that my wife was German, and I went over to Germany. I was going to move there at one point, and German is really hard to learn for me. I pick up Spanish much more easily. And I began to recognize that all my language skills were, a lot of them go right past the client. They don't pick up on the difference between talking to and speaking with. And an example would be this guy, a client that I had seen months before. I was out in public someplace. I ran into him. He said, "You know that session we had?" I said, yeah. And I'm thinking back to the session and remember, okay, I know this guy. and remembering all the clever things that I said. And he said, well, you know, it changed my life. And I said, really? Was it such and such? And he says, no, I couldn't figure out what the hell that was all about. But on the way out, on the way out of the office, I asked you about a restaurant. You told me about this Italian place up the street. I went there, and I'm getting married to the waitress. You've changed my life. Thank you. And it made me realize that our language skills are important, and we can use them with our clients in many different ways. But for me, what I've learned is that lately is that I think is the most important aspect of it is that if I use my language with the intent of changing them, I am doing the form of marketing NLP that I see so much from the manipulator end of the NLP community. And when I use the language, I change me. When I'm using my language and doing it to assist a client rather than to manipulate them into a new behavior, I change me, and that changes our relationship. Yeah. So while my language is still important, my intent of how to use the language has shifted. I am using it now to make sure that I stay in the presence or in the state of awareness where I can pick up on their language and help them on that level. Does that make it,
That makes perfect sense, Dan. And we're running to the end of our time here, Dan. So one of the things that has been asked in the chat room, and I was going to ask you anyway, how can people get in touch with you if they want to contact you separately from the conference?
Dan Cleary at Juno.com is my email.
Dan Cleary at Juno.
Or DanClearyHypnosis.com is my website.
Okay. It's also where they would notify you if they take the class so that they can get the materials, right?
Bingo, one in a row. Yep.
Okay. Dan Cleary at Juno.com. Dan Cleary, the author of Targeting Pain, A Practitioner's Guide to Relief, presenting a one-day program on Friday of the conference weekend on targeting pain. We're looking forward to seeing you, Dan. And we have a little, what do I want to say, a little ritual that we engage in here because we just love the fact when all hell breaks loose, and it's St. Patrick's Day besides, so even a better opportunity. So what we're going to do in a second here is we're going to open up everyone's microphones so they can all just tell you how much they appreciate you being with us tonight. And we certainly do appreciate you being with us tonight. And we'll look forward to seeing you in Daytona Beach, just around the corner.
2 months, be there.
So oyster, green beers, and say beer.
Say thanks.
Green beer is not beer, okay?
On St. Patrick's Day, it has to be green.
So send your to Dan, everybody. Say hello, say goodbye, say thank you very much. We really do appreciate it, Dan.
Thank you, Dan. Look forward.
Happy trails.
Okay. Now, Dan, do feel free to stick around, however, because we're going to be talking with Karen in a moment, and I'm sure she's going to have absolutely remarkable to say as well. So once again, I'm going back to do what I have done before, and mute the microphones. And yeah, so see you guys. All right, so now I'm sitting here on St. Patrick's Day, just reminiscing over the time that I just spent with my good friend Dan Cleary, fresh from the Emerald Isle, and feeling good about it. I haven't drunk anything green yet today, however, so we'll have to do that after we're done here. But sitting in front of that green Chicago River is there my friend Karen Hand. And by the way, Karen, I think I mentioned it to you earlier today, but I have got a new word for the day because it's what I think hypnosis does, and I know you're a lady for words.
Yeah.
Hypnosis is one of those special talents that works automatically to bring change into your life. So automatically is my word of the day. And And Karen Hand has written a book called Magic Words and Language Patterns, the Hypnotist Essential Guide for Crafting Irresistible Suggestions by Karen Hand. She did it in her own name and everything. And we are so happy to have you with us tonight, Karen.
Thank you.
And on the other side of the table, as it were. So, so how cool is that?
I think it's very cool. Thank you very much.
So Karen is teaching a program on Friday, a one-day program on Friday called the Remind System for Positive Change. And I'm fascinated by the title of it. So what is it that makes the Remind System different from other systems or protocols or techniques?
Well, I will say, Michael, that when I first got into hypnosis, I was fascinated. I had a wonderfully integrated trainer who did hypnosis and NLP sort of as a mashup. And so it was a wonderful little entree into hypnosis. But I didn't feel like I knew enough to actually practice. So I took more classes and more classes and more classes. And what I tended to gravitate toward were the charismatic trainers who said, I've got the solution. This will work. All you have to do is this step, and this step, and it will work. And so I was sucked in and I took the classes. And then in the classes, they would tend to say, and you must do it in this order and do it every time on everything. Well, okay, I've got this new list that I can follow, and this is going to make me a successful hypnotist. Great. And I would follow it. I would do this step and this step and this step and this step. And sometimes it worked. A lot of times it worked. And then I would come up across a time when it didn't work. And go, oh no, what do I do now? And I would go back and I would reread the steps and I would study the steps and I would keep the outline in front of me, making sure that I was doing it perfectly. And then something still would go awry and it didn't work. And it took me a couple of times to realize maybe it's not me, maybe it's not the client, maybe this technique doesn't suit this scenario. Maybe I need to learn a new technique. And so I would learn a new technique and then I'd go through the process again, do this step, this time, every time, and it works every time. And I discovered along the way, nothing works every time. It's great to have steps and it's great to have techniques, but nothing works every single time on every single client. And it took me a couple of trainers to learn this, and it took me a couple of years before I figured out, wait a minute, the thing in our world that works is listening to the client and being flexible enough to fit your work with the client, making it client-centered. And so what this really does, Michael, is it has a format where you can start out and some steps to follow, but then there's complete flexibility once you get past the talking to them, finding out what their issues are, finding out what their limiting beliefs are and what their benefits are. Then you have a whole system of looking at, let's see, does regression work here? Does Pert's work here? Will direct suggestion work better with this particular client? Because I think generative hypnosis works with a lot of people. And I think there are some people who really need to be told what to do. And so direct suggestion will work better with them. And how do you know? How do you know which branch to go with? And so that's what this system is all about, is the flexibility to gather the proper information so that you will know which way to go as you're working with this particular client. No two clients are the same.
And then to be able to choose from a variety of tools, which is quite interesting. I see, here's one of the things is that I experienced a similar frustration with there is a right way and steps to follow. And so I thought I was going to work my way through that and come up with some new way of working. And I sat down with a pencil and paper and worked on it. And the next thing I knew is I had developed another set of steps to follow in order, in order to do it in a new way.
Well, actually, steps sell, formats sell, systems sell. People like that. People like to buy something that they say, oh gosh, if I just follow these rules, it's going to work. What I discovered along the way is I'm just not a good rule follower. I mean, it took a while for me to discover it, but I discovered I'm not a good rule follower, and I should have known it when I was a kid. The first time when I was a kid that I played Monopoly, we opened the game and we read all of the rules and we followed them to the letter, and we played Monopoly for frickin' ever, it seemed like. It just went on and on and on, and it was not a lot of fun. I didn't go back and play Monopoly for a long time. But then I went to another friend's party one night, at a slumber party, and she said, "Oh, we're going to play Monopoly." I thought, God, this is going to be dull. And we actually played it with house rules. They had changed up a bunch of the, what was it, Milton Bradley rules. And you could put money in the center, and you could collect more money, and you could buy more properties, and you could just have more fun in the game. And I should have been tipped off right then that rules are good to know, so that it'll give you a guideline to start out with. And then it's good to find out what rules you can break or change or do it a different way, so that actually everybody has more fun. That's what this is really all about, is so that everybody has more fun, everybody gets to the goal they're getting to, and you get to use what's most important or change up the rules so that you're not doing the exact same thing every single time. That would drive me nuts.
Yeah, I discovered that Monopoly actually got to be fun when I learned the rule that said you had to take a shot of something whenever you collected rent from someone.
See, there you go, changing up the rules to make it more fun.
So Karen, in your class, what are the things that people that take your class are going to get out of here and go home with?
Okay, so we're going to start out with some of the ways that I like to do my, I guess, induction, which I like to do during the screening or the consultation. Some people like to wait and get the client into their office, and then you go through the whole ritual of discovering them and doing the induction and doing the convincing and all of that stuff. I like to do that on the consultation call. I like to have a client call me and have me, first of all, I should step back a moment and say, I don't think anybody who comes into my office is resistant to hypnosis. I think as soon as my phone rings and I answer it and they say, "Hi, I'm looking to find out if hypnosis is right for me," or "I want to schedule an appointment with you," they're already convinced, or pretty close to being convinced, that hypnosis is going to work, or they wouldn't pay my fee and they wouldn't schedule my appointment. So to me, it's a big waste of time to spend a whole lot of time in a convincing mode with your client to convince them that hypnosis is going to work. You can talk yourself right into convincing them that it may not work, or they might better have some questions about it. So I like to just go with the beliefs they bring into me. When my phone rings and they say they want an appointment, they're telling me right there that they believe in hypnosis and they think it's going to work. Then we start talking about what stopped them, or what's getting in the way, or what do they want to change. I don't change them on the phone or when I'm doing the screening, but I will elicit some information about them to make sure that hypnosis is the right thing for them. Obviously, if they say, "I broke my leg and I want to know if you can help me get over the pain," I'm going to ask them to go to a doctor first, because I don't set bones. So I do that kind of screening, right? But once they've made the appointment and they're in the office, they've already told me that they're pretty convinced that hypnosis is a great path for them to take, and they're showing me that they have hope it's going to work. So all of that convincing stuff, I don't find to be a lot of necessity there. Once they're in my office, they're already pretty convinced. Then we start talking about what it is they want to change specifically, and what's been stopping them from making that change. So I like to use with them the old NLP technique, the outcome specification exercise, which is my conversation with them. And I will teach you in this workshop the outcome specification exercise and how to utilize that to gather, to build rapport, to have some congruence with your client, to learn about them, and to elicit their metaphors, their limiting beliefs, their benefits, and their personal trance words. Because as people are talking and telling you their story, they're also going to give you your values. If you know what to listen to, they'll tell you what their values are, what their motivation strategy is. So in that outcome specification exercise, we also learn how to listen for all of those things that will help the client make the change that they came in for. They're going to tip you off every single time. So we'll do some work on listening appropriately. I'll even give you a secret right now. Do you know the number one way to be a better listener? The number one rule to better listening. You know it, Michael?
I'm being quiet.
That's it. Stop talking. You have to stop talking. So if we're in that questioning mode, which means we want them to talk, we ask a specific set of questions or some questions to elicit the answers we want. And then we stop and we listen and we take notes and we discover what their transwords are. There are even a few tricks that you can throw in there to get their values so that you can use that as you're working with your client. If they value freedom, that's a word that you might want to drop in a lot to let them know that when they do this, they will be free of that. That's using some of the languaging or some of the words that we're talking about. So the outcome specification exercise is one that we will do in this workshop, and we will talk about listening and eliciting various pieces of information from that. We'll talk about how to use those personal transwords that you pull up. We'll talk about how to get their metaphors and how to elicit the metaphors. Typically, you'll get it just in listening to the way they talk, how they're talking about an issue will give you their metaphors, but you can also do a couple of other exercises that we'll learn in this workshop to help get their metaphors about what their goal is and what the change means to them so that you can work within their framework of thinking. We'll talk about hypnotic time travel, and when you want to use hypnotic time travel with a client, when it's best to use to go back in time or to go forward in time. So we'll talk about hypnotic time travel, and I particularly like resourceful hypnotic time travel. Mm-hmm. I'll throw in some razzle dazzle, and we'll talk a little bit about what I learned from stage show education, how I'm instructing my clients how to follow directions in a fun and easy way. And I don't mean by sticking their arms out like that. I mean ways that you can talk to them and gently instruct them that in this situation, they're following your instructions. We'll talk about parts work, and we'll talk about how we gather all the information first. Then we're going to branch off with some techniques. I like to teach really easy, quick techniques that can be done in a very short amount of time. And I like techniques, I particularly like techniques that I can first run with a client in the conscious wide awake state, because I really like working with their conscious mind. I don't ever want to shut out the conscious mind. I know that we learn in hypnosis to leave the conscious mind out or get it out of the way so that we can just talk with the subconscious mind. We talk about getting over that critical factor or critical faculty, which I call the yabbit factor, yabbit this, yabbit that. I like to get beyond that, but I don't like to lock out their conscious mind. I know that the conscious mind is the person who called me and booked the appointment. So if I'm thinking about what I'm doing, I really work for the conscious mind. I know techniques to help get their solutions from their subconscious mind, but I've been hired by the conscious mind, so I don't want to shut it out. I like to work in a very wide awake conscious state first with a nice technique, which I believe everything is hypnosis. So when we're working in that conscious state, if they are looking for solutions, they are already in a state of hypnosis. We do that first with the conscious mind very aware. And then once we do that and the change has already been made, the conscious mind is already bought into it, then we do the ritual of hypnosis, which of course is what they paid me to do. And that gives their conscious mind then something to hang it on. If the technique is too easy and they make their change, they could easily walk out and say, wow, that was too easy. I don't think that really worked. I don't want the conscious mind talking them out of it either. So we'll do the change, they'll get it in their mind, they'll know what it is, and then we do the formal hypnosis, which pretty much just installs that app that they want to download, and we practice it. Then we future pace it, practice it, make sure it sticks, and then we've got the ritual and their conscious mind has something to hang it on. So those are some of the ways that we work. Did that make sense? Was that rundown without steps? Did that make sense?
That made great sense. My favorite part actually is the razzle dazzle hypnosis technique. I think that's something I'm really looking forward to. And you mentioned hypnotic time travel.
Yes.
I love that phrase. I love the concept, but I want to make sure that we're sort of clear about it. Is that the same? Is that regression?
Well, yes, it's regression. It's progression. It can be past lives. Time travel is something, the mind is magical. Michael, recall for me your favorite maybe holiday or at, I don't know, something celebration that you've done. Recall for me your favorite celebration.
Okay.
Just tell it to me. Do you mind?
Oh, I was thinking there's St. Swithin's Day. No, 12th night was always one of my favorite things, and I used to have a regular annual event on 12th night, and people would come, and we did some interesting 12th night stuff.
Was there one in particular that really stands out to you? One in particular?
The first one actually that I did in Florida, because it was a whole new group of people and was quite interesting, and a chance to connect with people in a new way.
And of course, we never forget our first. So it makes perfect sense that that's the one that you would recall. Recall some details about it. How many people were there? You said it was a new group.
Oh yeah, gosh, there were like between 25 and 30 people maybe. And I wasn't in my office yet. I was brand new to Florida, so it was in the living room of a condo that we were living in. And
this one,
it was great fun.
This one is so special to you and great fun because
it really was a unique way of connecting with a new group of people.
And that living room that you had it in, was there a sofa in that living room?
There was directly across from a fireplace.
And what color was it?
The fireplace?
No, the sofa.
I'm not really certain anymore. I think it was black.
Ah, interesting. Were there people sitting on the sofa?
Yeah, that's why I can't remember what color it was.
Ah, so be there in that situation now and tell me, where were you sitting in that group of people? Or
I was actually sitting on a chair at the front of the room because I was kind of conducting this.
So for a moment, just be in it, if you don't mind. Just be in it, in that chair at the front of the room, and kind of look around and tell me what you see there. What you notice in that room.
Well, I see people all over the place, more people than can fit in my living room, on the sofa, of course, and on the chair and on the floor, and everywhere that they could fit. And they all seemed to be having a good time. There was a lot of laughter, as I recall, and smiling faces. I think our holiday grog helped a little bit with that.
So I'm just going to thank you for sharing that, Michael. I was really doing that to show how easy it was, in a very conversational manner, to get Michael right back into an event. There were a couple of questions that I asked, and he went from, I remember, and this is what we did with a tiny bit of coaxing, to being there, and it became very present tense. And his language became very present tense. And as I watched that and worked with that, and had we really been working on something important, I mean, I wouldn't have just pulled it out of the blue for you to recall something, right? We would have not been going to a specific place. But even in just pulling it out of the blue, Michael transitioned from I was there to I am there. And I believe that it's our grog that is helping with this. And I see smiling faces. And it very organically became a revivification of what was going on. I specifically asked him about a happy thing because I didn't want him to remember any kind of trauma or go through anything like that. But just very organically, as I kept up with him and listened to him, we transitioned that into a time travel back into that memory. Mm-hmm. Right?
Right.
And so a lot of people do regression to go back to a trauma. That's not my favorite thing. If I do, for some reason, need someone to go back to something like that, I will do it from a dissociated perspective. So we will be looking at timeline work in this workshop, so we can easily dissociate and look down on something, taking what we need out of it. I install a very handy, when I do timeline work and we're looking down on a memory, I install a nifty little emotional drain at the bottom of that memory, and let them know that that is the emotional drain, and anything they don't want to feel about that, they can just let drain out of the emotional drain. And then any of the learnings, we just bring back up with us and take it on to another place. So that's a little razzle dazzle, Michael, the emotional drain there that we just add in there.
I like that.
So the hypnotic time travel then can go backwards, it can go forwards, it can be from a dissociated level, it can be associated. And if we're going back looking for resources, we definitely want to associate that in. We may start from a dissociative perspective, but then we associate into the memory. That's what we were doing when I asked you, so sit in that chair and tell me what's happening now. Be there. We associated into the memory to make it more of a revivification. Now, regression is a wonderful tool to use, and there are times and places to use regression. As an example, when a client says, I know exactly where it started. When a client tells me I know exactly where it started, I know there are trainers who will tell you don't listen to their conscious mind because it doesn't know what it's talking about. I like to start there. They've already have a belief system, and they let me know that they have a belief system, that this is exactly where the thing started. So why not we go back and look at that? Let's just start there. All right, let's go. Recall it. Tell me more about it. And the more they start telling me about it, if you were watching Michael as he was doing that, he was doing his derivational search. He was looking for memories. He was spacing out a little bit. His eyes defocused a bit as he was really getting into his memory. So all of that was occurring as we were watching and calibrating what was happening and moving forward from there. If somebody says, I know exactly where it started, okay, let's just start there and see what happens. If somebody physiologically regresses as they're talking to you, this Sarah Carson, a good friend of mine, Sean and Sarah Carson and Jess Marion, some of us call them the Three Amigos, they will be at the IACT IMDHA conference, and they were very instrumental in helping me and really working with me on my book. And I recall the first time that I actually had the copy of my book, and I showed it to Sarah. And I went up to Sarah and I said, I've got my book. How old was I when I just said that to her? Right? How old did I instantly become? And Sarah was able to watch me, and she called me out on it. It was a wonderful little thing for us to do. She called me out on it and said, oh my gosh, how old are you? And who is telling me this? And this little girl inside of me so wanted the approval, right? So wanted the praise, or, you know, put it up on the refrigerator, whatever it is. But she saw me physiologically regress right to that point. Now, we didn't have to do any kind of regression over that, but if you've got a client in your office who physiologically or starts talking and they regress down to that earlier age, boy, it's a great clue to do some regression work. Another thing might be if they've got an emotion, they're feeling angry or fearful in some way that is really overblown. It's outsized for the what they're telling you, the context of what they're talking about. That might be another indication that regression is warranted. So there are some reasons why you might want to do regression, or some things that occur that will tip you off that regression might be a good thing to do here. If, on the other hand, they're not talking about, I know exactly where it started, or regressing in those ways, that may not be the technique that is appropriate here. There may be an easier, gentler, quicker technique that would work better, so you don't have to go down that path.
Nice, nice. So just again to remind everybody, Karen's class, the Remind System for Positive Change, is Friday of the conference weekend. It's an all-day program, and well, you'll want to do that, and if you can manage to split yourself in two, you can go to Dan Cleary's and to Karen Hand's at the same time. It would be lovely if we could do that. It's kind of interesting how the speakers that we typically have are the folks that are presenting on the same days because of the order that we're following through this. But here's two great opportunities on Friday of the conference weekend to have some really good experiences. So if I were to walk into your classroom on Friday, in the middle of Friday afternoon, what could I expect to see going on?
Expect to hear laughter and expect to hear a lot of stuff going on, but I will be teaching things, but I will also be having you experiment with a lot of stuff. I will give you handouts and we'll have exercises to do, and while we'll talk about it, and everybody gets to ask their questions and put up their objections as we go, but we'll also be practicing all of this, because I think the practice is really So important. I believe in learning from the inside out. So when you practice it, when you experiment with it, you get to feel or experience it as the client might experience it. And that gives us a whole different level of learning. So will I hand out the outcome specification exercise as an example. There may be a demo of that, there may be discussion about it, but then we'll break up and we're going to actually play with it so that we can experience how to make that work. And I'll be there to monitor and answer questions. Then we'll move into, we'll do some rapport building, we'll do some metaphor elicitation, and probably all of that before lunch. We'll have everything done all the way up to the technique. And then we'll come back and we'll explore a bunch of different, very handy techniques that you can use. This is where it starts to begin to look more like a family tree than it does like a linear system. If this, then you've got this choice or this choice to make. If this, then you can make this choice or this choice. But there's a whole variety of things that you can use. And the other great thing about this is there are so many tricks and so many tools that are out there that if you're going down one road and something doesn't seem to be gelling, you just flip and do it a different way. I had a client recently who said, I know exactly where, it was a fear, I know exactly where it started. It was in 2nd grade and I was sent out into the hallway and the hallway scared me. And this particular client has issues now with things that are, they tend to be long and narrow, like highways. He's get out on a highway, he gets fearful because he can't see the end of it, other things that come up. So it was a good indication that regression was warranted. And he had the emotion, he had the fear. So because he was in touch with that fear, affect bridge seemed to be the right regression technique to use at that point. Well, bounce off his fear. And he brought it up and I counted him down and we went younger and younger and smaller and be there now. And he said, I got nothing. It's just dark, I got nothing. Okay. Well, he had the feeling. I could then say, all right, wait a minute, you got to do this my way or we're not going to make progress. Or I could say, hey, not a problem. I'm curious what might happen if you think about that again, and let's do it in a different way. I moved it over to walking down a hallway, which is what he was working with. And it's like a hotel hallway and you see doors on each side. Everybody probably knows this technique. There are numbered doors on each side. And as you walk down, we'll start, you happen to be 30. We'll start at number 30 and there's 30 on one side and 29 on the other and 28 and 27 and so forth. And I'd like you to start walking down that hallway and at some point you will step in front of a door that just calls your attention. I don't want you to go in, but just stand in front of that door for a moment. When you get there, tell me what it is. And he said, it's number 18. I said, don't go in. I just want you to open the door and look in there and tell me what's going on. You'll see yourself inside there and tell me what's going on. And he said, yeah, I'm about to graduate from high school. And he opened the door and from outside in the hallway, he didn't have any trouble at all getting into a memory or getting into a thought or telling me what was going on in that room. I don't know what happened with that client as we were doing the affect bridge. I don't know if he got scared. I don't know if he didn't want to face it. I don't know if he didn't believe in it. I don't know what it was. But when I just said, no problem, that's okay, let's just go down this hallway and see what happens. That worked for him. We went to when he was 18 and then we went to another time and then we went to the time in the hallway. And so he picked those doors and after we were through and he got insights each time, each place along the way, after we were through, he said, I wonder why I went to door number 18. And I pointed out, well, we got this piece of insight and this piece of insight and the subconscious mind always knows exactly where to take us and exactly what to expose to us. And he really liked that. And as we worked together the next time, it was even easier. So I don't have any idea. I'm not a mind reader. I don't know why that first attempt at the affect bridge didn't gel with this particular client, but it didn't make any difference because we just take that and say, oh, well, then let's go over here and do it this way instead. That's what this flexible approach is, so that you've always got something you can try instead. Nobody is at fault. Nobody's making a mistake. Everybody's doing the best they can with what they've got at hand.
Great. That's lovely. So So I'll tell you what, I'm torn because, like I said, I want to spend some time over in Dan's room. So I need to know what time to come over to your room in order to when you're going to do the razzle dazzle technique. That's
It's all razzle dazzle. Trust me.
So listen, Karen, we're before we run out of time, I want to make sure that if anybody has any particular questions for you, that they have the opportunity. So to remind them again, you can just write your questions in the chat room, and then we'll get them to Karen so that she can answer. In the meantime, by the way, how can people get in touch with you?
Oh, it's kind of easy. It's Karen, Karen, at Karen Hand. That's my name, KarenHand.com. So if you can remember my name, and I'm not requiring you to do so, that would be how to get in touch with me.
Now, is the Karen spelled the same as the Karen and Karen Hand?
Yes, it is. They're both spelled the same, and Hand is spelled just like this.
Karen at Karen Hand.
I am the right hand, by the way.
Lovely. All right. So if anybody has any questions for Karen, you can go ahead and put them in the chat room. And otherwise, while we're waiting to see if they materialize, would you be interested in a little exploration with the group that we talked about?
Absolutely, I'd love to do this. And I don't know if any of you have ever had a client who says, I don't know exactly what I want. The outcome specification exercise is really to specify exactly what it is they're looking for and how we're going to get there. What they want. But I've had some people say, I don't know what I want. I just don't want to be fat anymore, or I just don't want to smoke anymore. I don't know what I want instead. They have a limited understanding or have never been taught how to look at the future and come up with an end game. Dan Cleary was talking earlier about seeing the end, seeing an end game. If you stub your toe, how much easier it is when you know that this is only going to be an hour and then it's going to be fine, or if you can see the end game. If I'm working with somebody who's got a dental phobia, often what we do is be able to see the end game, that it's going to be over and the relief they're going to get at the end, rather than being gripped by the fear that this is my life forever and ever and I'm going to have my mouth open with somebody's hands in my mouth forever. So one of the things we want to do is create an end game, right? So that we can create what we're going to. Lots of people when they retire, not lots of people, but some people when they retire, get an RV and just start meandering through the country. That's certainly one way to see the country. Most people, when they go on vacation, choose a destination. And once they've chosen their destination, everything falls into place very easily. They know what to pack, they know how to travel, they know how to get there. So this exercise really is a way to activate the imagination and create or begin to look at that destination that's ahead. So would everybody like to do this? Let's go along with this for a bit. Okay, so we're hypnotists. Let's play with some hypnosis. If you don't mind, you can do your eyes open or closed. I don't care. Some people like to close their eyes because it blocks out visual input and allows their imagination to just go crazy. So if you'd like to do that, make yourself comfortable and just close your eyes for a moment. And take in a nice breath, as deep as you'd like it to be. And just allow yourself to relax. And we're just going to play with your imagination. Just play with your imagination for a moment. As a matter of fact, let's start out by imagining that you can float right up out of your body so that you kind of float up to the ceiling and you can look down at yourself sitting in that chair, sitting there relaxing with your eyes closed, noticing your breathing, just letting go. And in your imagination, as you look down there, seeing yourself in that chair, noticing yourself becoming very relaxed, just realize that you're safe and comfortable right there. And your imagination can do whatever it wants to now. So let your imagination float on up through the ceiling. Let it float on up through the ceiling and even all the way out of the building that you're in, so that you're above it and you're looking down and you can just see the roof of that building that you're in. If you don't mind, just continue to float on out. Float on out, getting higher and higher and higher so that you can see the building and you can see your whole neighborhood. You can see your whole city as you float higher and higher. You can see the state, the country that you're in, floating higher and higher until you get out by the moon and the stars, and you can see that blue planet down there below, knowing that you're safe down there, but your imagination is out here exploring and looking around, and go further and further out amongst the stars and the planets and out past the galaxies. As a matter of fact, we're going out to a place of unlimited reality. We're going so far to the outer limits that there are no limits. We will pass through any limit at all because we are in the outer zone, the place where all things are possible. In your imagination, you can have anything you want. So as you're out there sort of floating around, you happen to notice something catches your eye. Maybe it's a sparkle, maybe it's a spark. Something catches your eye, and start moving toward that, moving closer and closer and closer. And you happen to notice that it's a planet. It's your planet. It's your place of unlimited reality. So go ahead and land on that planet. And just begin to look around and explore and realize that this is your place. Anything you want is here. Anything that you desire is here. The air temperature is exactly the way you want it to be. The plants or the foliage is everything that you want. Maybe there's a home there for you. Maybe there's a place that's just yours. Everything you want is here. Everyone you want is here. So just take a moment and look around at this place of your own creation and notice what's there. Maybe you'll notice the colors. Maybe you'll notice people or pets or plants. Maybe you'll notice something that we've never even noticed before. As you're there creating your space, your perfect existence, realize there are no limits here. It's exactly the way you want it to be. And create that as in exactly the way you want, and realize that you can go on creating this place in your imagination anytime you want. You can come back and visit this place anytime you want. It's yours. You've experienced it now, and no one can take it away from you. All you have to do to come back to this place is just decide and allow yourself to come back here and explore your place of unlimited reality. Knowing that you can come back anytime you want, anytime at all. Let's begin the journey back to that blue planet, because you know you can come back here and create or change or move or add anything that you want. But for now, let's just begin to go back and bring whatever you want with you. Good feelings, the ability to create, the ability to create your own environment. Bring that back with you as you come back through the stars, through the planets, passing the moon and seeing the earth down there below you, getting closer and closer, coming back so that you can see the United States and see your city, your country, your neighborhood, the roof to your building. Come on back through the roof of that building, and you're up there on the ceiling again, seeing yourself down there comfortably in that chair, relaxing peacefully, noticing your breathing is very relaxed. Go ahead and rejoin your body. Just settle in there. And know that you can go back to this place of your creation, anytime you want to, anytime at all. Take all the time you want with that, and when you're ready, just open your eyes and rejoin us back here. And it's a nice way of just activating the imagination. If you've got a client who's not exactly sure what they want, you can work with them through that kind of experience. And it can be interactive. You can have them tell you what they're finding, what they're noticing, so that they get deeper into it, and you get the sense whether you need to help have them go more into it or create more or bring them back. It can be as long or as short as you want. And if anybody would like that script treatment of that, since you were here tonight, I'll be happy to send that to you. Just send it, ask for it at Karen@KarenHand.com and the Planet script, and I'll be happy to send that to you. We'll also be talking about that in class. It's one way to activate imagination.
All right. Well, Karen, that's just lovely. And thank you for that. By the way, we might want to do hypnotic time travel and go back right to before you began, and let everybody know that if you are operating heavy machinery or driving an automobile at this particular point, please don't listen. But
right.
That was really great. And so we're looking forward to this. We've got a one-day program, Friday, May 17th, Remind System for Positive Change. The same time, Dan Cleary in another room doing targeting pain. These are the things we've talked about today. I also did want to mention that Dan is going to do a 1-hour talk on induction and intent. Karen is going to do a 1-hour talk called Affirming the Goal Technique. And Karen and I together are going to do a 1-hour talk on the ins and outs of working online with clients, which is something that we both do a whole heck of a lot of. So
yeah, I want to mention too that I almost forgot on Sunday, I'm doing the lunch on Sunday. Here we're going to have a fun game, a way that you can do a workshop for your Chamber of Commerce or your local women's club meetings. It's going to be a really fun game where you start to explain to them how the subconscious mind works and how powerful the subconscious mind is. So it's a drawing experiment. We'll do that over the lunch, and you will get to experience how I run that workshop and how I really bring hypnosis to people who otherwise wouldn't necessarily be interested in hypnosis. It kind of activates that imagination too.
Great. All right, and Karen Hand's lovely book here, Magic Words and Language Patterns, is available at Amazon, or of course from Karen at the conference itself. I imagine she'll have a supply on hand.
I will, and you get the handouts from this book free in this class, because we'll talk about what we do with stuff when we get to that point, how we create the scripts with all the information that we've elicited.
Nice. Okay, well then it has become that time, Karen, and the time passes so quickly. So thanks to Karen, and of course thanks to Dan. But thank you to you, Karen. I'm about ready to unmute the microphones so that everybody can wish you well as well, and we'll have a great send off. Next week we will be talking with Sheila Granger and Will Horton. Same time, same bat channel on Sunday at 8:30 p.m. here in Florida. And whatever time it was tonight when you logged on, wherever you are. So please come back and see us next week. Opening up the microphones now, and thank you again so much, Karen and Dan, and we'll see you all at the conference.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you. Great job.
Good night, Dan.
Thank you. Night, Mikey.
Everything that they said.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you.
Night, all.